things out to different people. So he delegates the finance things to Vanessa. He delegates the legal things to Andrew Finch, and he delegates the customer marketing and sales related things to Stephanie. And Darcy has a very funny comment there. Okay, so Alan's ultimately in charge at the top. He's there for high-level strategic decisions, the paper signer, as Darcy's put it, and he is also the link between the board of directors and the leadership team. Okay, so that gives you a better sense of the financial manager, where they sit, what they're in charge of for Qantas. Now, following on from that, does anybody know what the goal of the financial manager or the chief financial officer is? If you do, just pop that into the chat. Okay, so Nicholas, Stephanie, Elliot, Samira, Christopher, you guys are all, Adam, you guys are all on the right path here. Okay, so the goal of the financial manager or the chief financial officer is to maximize shareholder wealth. Okay, so what we've got here is basically Qantas's financial framework. It's basically Qantas's plan on how does Qantas ensure that it makes money, or how does it increase shareholder value, also known as shareholder wealth, also known as shareholder returns. Okay, so Qantas plans to have total shareholder returns in the top quartile of Australian firms. So how does Qantas do this? Well, it has a 3-step process. Okay, and the 3-step process goes as follows. So this step 3, another way of terming this is the capital budgeting decision. Okay, so I'll just pop that onto the slide here and try and see if I can, whoops, if I can write properly. Okay, so we're going to look at capital budgeting in lectures 7 and 8. In essence, what this step is saying is that Qantas will only invest in assets and projects where the benefits or returns are greater than the costs or capital to set up those investments or assets. So long story short, an example could be Qantas could be considering introducing a new flight, a direct flight from Sydney to London. So this could be considered part of the capital budgeting process, and Qantas would consider something like that if that type of investment or project will make them money. So we'll talk more about this in lectures 7 and 8. Okay, the second step that Qantas does is called the cost of capital. We're going to look at this in lecture 10. Okay, and it's a little bit more complicated for now, and I know this is the intro class. I won't get into it too much. We'll get into it later, but basically all it's saying is that Qantas will only invest in projects and assets which have a return of greater than 10%. Okay, so we'll talk more about all of these other terms in due time. And the first step here is maintaining an optimal capital structure. We're going to look at this in lecture 5, lecture 6, and lecture 10. Okay. So what capital structure means is it's how much debt, which is borrowed money, to equity should Qantas have, where equity is money invested into Qantas? So it turns out that capital structure affects a firm's value. And again, we'll talk more about this later. But in order for Qantas to maximize its value, it does this by maintaining amount of debt or borrowed money between 5.2 and 6.5 billion. Okay, so more on all of these things in subsequent lectures. But basically, if Qantas does these three things, it will allow Qantas to achieve EPS growth. Does anyone know what EPS is? Boom, Elliot straight off the gate, Hugh as well. So EPS is earnings per share, and it's equal to a company's net profit divided by the number of shares it has. Okay, so Qantas does three things: capital structure, cost of capital, capital budgeting. These three things help Qantas achieve a higher or growth in its earnings per share, so a higher net profit. And typically a higher net profit is associated with a higher share price, and a higher share price means that its owners are satisfied with increased shareholder wealth or value or market capitalization. So this slide here is a really nice summary of all the things we're going to learn about in this course and how it applies to Qantas. Okay, so of course, a lot of you are answering the questions via the chat, very good. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll try and answer them as we go. If I can't, I'll try and get back to you at least when the lecture's finished. So I'm just going to wipe these scribbles off now. So we don't really need to spend too much time on this slide because it seems like you guys get the point. The goal of the financial manager or the CFO is to maximize shareholder wealth, also known as shareholder value, also known as market capitalization. So how do you calculate market capitalization? Well, it's a really basic calculation. Okay, so all finance people want to know the market cap of something or of a company because they know if its value is going up or down. Okay, so all you need to do is take a company's share price, multiply it by the number of shares. And we'll do that a lot in this course. So one of the things that we try to emphasize in the pre-recordings is that we tend to focus on